What's good, greatness gang? Welcome back to another reaction. And today I have a very, very special reaction for you all. We're going to be learning about the history of Woodstock. Well, at least I am, because I'm pretty young and I don't have a clue about it. I just hear the name a lot when I'm researching rock and roll artists. But I did hear that it was supposed to be a very important time in history, a very wild time in history. So what really did happen in Woodstock? So we're going to be reacting to two videos. One is titled Insane Things That Happened at Woodstock, and the other one is called What Was the Original Woodstock Really Like? So first, we're going to react to the Insane Things ones. Hopefully these videos are not redundant, but let's get into them. Oh, also, I want to thank you all for voting on this week's poll. This was one of the videos that you all voted for. The other one is coming soon. By the time you're watching this, it might be out also. The other one is the top 3-piece bands. I'm going to be reacting to that as well. So, because it was a tie, it was 39% for both. So it was a tie. So I'm going to give you all both of those videos. Thank you for checking the poll each week and voting.
Peace, love, drugs, and rock and roll. The 1960s and 70s were a wild time. Some of the best artists of all time were just getting started.
Don't you want somebody to love?
And after the Vietnam War had successfully polarized much of the United States, a simple music festival was planned to promote peace and love. Well, maybe not simple. Woodstock would become an idyllic hippie paradise and unmatched in cultural impact. The Woodstock Music and Arts Fair, simply known as Woodstock, went down in history as one of the best music festivals of all time. Hundreds of thousands of people converged on upstate New York for one unforgettable experience.
That is a ton of people for a music festival. I am getting claustrophobic just looking at this photo. I don't know if I would have attended this.
But if you forgot it, that's okay. That's where we come in.
And it is true, their music is loud, and they dress weirdly and smoke pot.
I'm Nostalgic Nick with Do You Remember?
Now that's one thing I did hear about Woodstock, that there was a lot of pot smoking. Like a lot, like a ton, like a tremendous amount, like too much.
And today we're revisiting one of the best, wettest, truest counterculture music festivals of all time. If you enjoy our throwback, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Organizing the festival. The original Woodstock Festival was held from August 15th to the 18th in 1969.
So
it was the brainchild of 4 men in their 20s, highlighted by Michael Lang and Artie Kornfeld. Lang had recently organized the successful Miami Music Festival in 1968, and Kornfeld was the youngest vice president at Capitol Records.
The Miami Music Festival, what was that one about? Should I react to that? Should I look into that as well? And it's just crazy, how an idea in somebody's head can become an historic moment that people will talk about generations later. The beauty in ideas.
Surprisingly, the festival did not occur in Woodstock, New York, but in the neighboring town, Bethel, New York. That's because Woodstock wouldn't issue festival organizers a permit. But lucky for them, and for everyone, a 49-year-old dairy farmer named Max Yasgur granted them access to his 600-acre dairy farm in Bethel. And just 1 month away from thousands of hippies swarming the upstate, Creedence Clearwater Revival, or CCR, was the first big name to sign on.
If you didn't see my Creedence Clearwater Revival reaction yet, make sure you go on my channel and check that out as well.
I put a spell on you.
and lent this hazy festival the credibility it needed to attract other well-known acts. Woodstock also wasn't supposed to be a free event. The festival organizers sold thousands of tickets, $18 for the 3-day pass, or $7 a day. But throngs of people
$18 for a 3-day festival. $18 is probably the price of a bottle of water at a music festival now. That is a steal.
just kept showing up and eventually piled over the fences and found entry wherever they could. Organizers didn't even have all the fencing up. Again, just a month past they found the land. So in a conscious decision, partly for safety, they blanketed Woodstock a free event. And additionally, hundreds of thousands more people showed up. It is assumed that 500,000 people attended Woodstock, with another 500,000 unable to reach the final Bethel destination. And getting there was kinda like the movie Trains, Planes, and Automobiles.
I heard a lot about this film as well. Is this a must-see? I know those two guys are pretty great actors, but they talking about safety. It's 500,000 people there. You can't control that as police officers. That is too many damn people.
The people, the traffic. Now, getting to the festival was quite a challenge, to say the least. There were traffic jams sprawling, with some places being backed up for over 20 miles, causing police to have to divert traffic. And since the cars weren't moving, many people decided just to abandon them, right there on the side of the road or in the road. And caravans of automobile-freed individuals began marching towards the smoke.
We walked 11 miles.
So it was organized chaos, basically.
The freeway was basically just a big parking lot. Locals were trapped in their homes because they couldn't get out of their driveways. It's reported that the Woodstock traffic log was in the top 10 worst traffic jams ever. The musicians all had to be flown in with helicopters, because even limos are useless behind 200,000 Ford Mustangs and Pontiacs. But people didn't freak out having to wait undisclosed amounts of times for the talent, or having to abandon their car by the exit. There was plenty of free love, nudity, and drugs to go around for all.
And it's just this, with the bigger picture of this, it shows like the magnitude that the artists who performed, the impact that their music had on these people's lives, that they were willing to sit in 20 miles of traffic or abandon their vehicles and walk to a already overcrowded festival just to hope to see you, or hope to be able to hear the music loud enough, and honestly, like, put themselves in danger, to be honest. Like, that says a lot about the musicians back then. Like, they were pretty impactful.
People wandered around naked. Skinny dipping in the pond was a hot commodity, and the free love was going around. I mean, you can't have rock and roll without sex, right? But even more than the sex was the drug use at Woodstock. There were smoking camps with signs pointing you in the right direction, and even the torrential rain couldn't dampen the spirits. And it rained a lot. It was nearly impossible to stay dry, camping out under large pieces of plastic. Others chose to accept the rain as God's gift to the festival, playing in the mud pit that the grounds have turned into. But the energy, above all, was peaceful. Announcers would get on the mic and politely ask the guys on the light posts to come down. The vibe was harmonious. Some credit the lack of violence to the large number of psychedelic drugs being used. And
I was just about to say that they were doing the peaceful drugs.
The amount of iconic images from Woodstock is vast. Some wonderful ones featuring couples who met at the festival, many of which are still together today. The images illustrate the peace, fun, and camaraderie felt by the majority of the festival goers.
Did any of you attend Woodstock? Let me know in the comments. I would really like to know your experience. Please let me know.
Dirty parts. Woodstock wasn't all peace, love, and happiness, of course. Some pretty messed up things happened too. Hundreds of people formed massive lines to use the portable toilets. But there was roughly one toilet for every 800 people. Better get in line early. And those precious toilets soon overflowed, and sewage flowed throughout the festival grounds, which created more dark brown liquidy mud. But at least Max the dairy farmer wouldn't have to fertilize his ground for several years after that. The food vendors, food for love, ran out of things to eat, which makes sense when you add in all the unexpected attendees. Some began price gouging for simple things like hot dogs, charging quadruple the price. 2 of their tents were burned down because people got upset about the long lines paired with the steep, unfair prices. Soon, a group called the Hog Farm Collective began passing out granola to the hungry festival attendees. And granola has never looked back. They also set up a tent to help out with the next problem on this list, the drug use. Let me clear that up, specifically the unintentional drug use. Some of the food being passed around was laced with, who knows what. Some got sick from drinking laced beverages.
You wouldn't believe some of the kids that come in here. They're really spaced out.
Michael Lang, the organizer, said he was very particular about everything he consumed that weekend. Good for him. He probably had a less rad time. And above all, the worst part, which kind of pales in comparison to many high-traffic tragedies. 3 people lost their lives during Woodstock. 2 from drug overdose, presumed to be heroin, and the other was unceremoniously crushed by a tractor while sleeping. Absolutely terrible. But when compared with the Travis Scott Astroworld fiasco that happened in 2021, where 8 people were crushed to death by absolutely abysmal planning and control, let's just agree to go for 0 deaths at all festivals from here on out. Deal.
Yeah, me personally, I'm anti-festival. Maybe I'll be at a festival if I'm performing, but it doesn't look appealing.
The artists. As we mentioned, several of the artists scheduled to perform had difficulties getting to Woodstock. While the organizers were trying to coordinate flights, they had Richie Havens take the stage, and he played for a very, very long time. He would try to stop, and they would tell him to just keep going, man, they love ya. In all, 32 musical acts performed during this iconic festival.
Wow.
On Friday, August 15th, the following musicians appeared: Richie Havens, Sweetwater, Bert Summer, Tim Hardin, Melanie, Arlo Guthrie, and Joan Baez. On Saturday, August 16th, things got even more exciting, highlighted by Santana, Grateful Dead, CCR, Janis Joplin, Sly and the Family Stone, The Who, and Jefferson Airplane.
Should I react to any of these groups? I already reacted to Credence. Should I react to any of these other groups? Let me know.
I mean, ridiculous. Some say the Grateful Dead's performance was the worst at the festival, but one of the band members has said that the stage was literally collapsing beneath them, and the rain was just pounding.
Mama tried to raise me better, but her bleeding eyes.
And if you're a Deadhead or actually were at Woodstock, please shout at me in the comments. I want to know the truth. Sunday, August 17th, welcome Joe Cocker, the band, Johnny Winter, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. The festival had to finish on Monday, August 18th because of delays and pushbacks, with performances from the Paul Butterfield Blues Band, Sha-Na-Na, and finally, Jimi Hendrix. Jimmy was the highest paid performer of the entire festival. He insisted on playing last, supposed to
If you haven't checked out my Jimi Hendrix reaction yet, make sure you go check that out.
go on Sunday night, but delays caused the pushbacks. So Hendrix played his 2-hour-long set, one of his longest performances of his entire career, on Monday afternoon. It was legendary to say the least. And during the set, pardon my words, he absolutely destroyed the national anthem. He just shredded and stopped the world on its axis for 3 minutes and 43 seconds. Hendrix thought his performance was beautiful, and I do believe it was.
I thought it was beautiful. But then there you go.
He wasn't trying to spark controversy, he was just making history. Woodstock's Legacy. Many people who attended Woodstock are still alive and have fond memories of their experience. They know it truly was a once-in-a-lifetime kind of event. Today, there is a museum that promotes the history of Woodstock in Bethel, New York, called the Museum at Bethel Woods. It features 1960s history, but largely focuses on Woodstock.
That looks amazing. I would love to visit that museum. I never knew that it existed.
Duh. The original festival site is also listed on the National Register of Historic Places, so it is protected for many generations to visit and enjoy. To try and hear the faint reverberations of Hendrix's Fender Stratocaster. So let's discuss. Who is your favorite artist that played Woodstock? Did you get the 1973 vinyl set that featured some incredible moments, like Sly's Medley or Hendrix's Purple Haze? Or did you not need the record because you had a faint memory of attending?
Alright, that's pretty much it for that video. That was a good let's check out the next one. Let's see if they give us some different information in this one. What was the original Woodstock really like? If you made it this far in the video, subscribe to the channel, like the video. Thank you.
In the summer of '69, giant music festivals became a standard event for the younger generation to experience rock and roll, hallucinogens, and the chaos of cramming thousands of intoxicated people into a relatively confined area. One of these festivals, the Woodstock Music and Arts Fair, would be cemented as the most famous music festival in history. Today, we're going to take a look at what the original Woodstock was really like. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel.
Nope.
Of New York City. There was just one problem, though. Local authorities refused to issue permits not only in Woodstock, but also in the nearby town of Saugerties. Negotiations began with the town of Wallkill, and while a 300-acre site was leased, local opposition eventually prompted the town's zoning board to ban the venture. With less than 6 weeks remaining before the August 15th concert, promoter Michael Lang received an offer to rent a 30-acre rundown motel area in White Lake, a tiny village in the town of Bethel. When Lang realized the motel area was essentially a swamp, a local real estate agent took him instead to a 600-acre dairy farm owned by a man named Max Yasgur. The land was a natural bowl that led down to a small pond and seemed a perfect setting for what Lang had in mind. The land was leased, and despite some opposition from the officials in Bethel, the concert was on. The stage construction began. Despite already having sold hundreds of thousands of tickets, Michael Lang maintained throughout negotiations that the event was intended for no more than 50,000 people. The first logistical problem ensued when the small upstate New York roads could not handle the resulting traffic. At its longest, the traffic jam on Bethel's Highway 17B stretched for 20 miles. Concert-goers faced with a total standstill did the most logical thing under the circumstances. They abandoned their cars and began to walk to the festival site. The New York State Police, however, were not so happy about the situation, so the man quickly shut down 2 exits of the New York State Thruway to discourage additional vehicles. Heavy traffic affected the start time of the concert, which was scheduled to begin at 3 p.m. with the band Sweetwater. However, the group, equipment and all, was among those stuck in the traffic jam. Promoter Lang talked Richie Havens into appearing hours after the deadline, as he was the only musician available. Havens attempted to end his set several times, but he was repeatedly told to keep playing as there were no other acts ready to perform. For his final tune and 7th encore, he merely improvised, using the word freedom. This would become the theme song for the rest of Havens' career. When Havens passed away in 2013, by his request, his ashes were scattered at the Woodstock site. By the time Richie Havens was finally allowed to stop, Sweetwater had finally made it. Thanks to a hastily acquired helicopter, they began playing at approximately 6:15 p.m. Next was a Hindu monk, the Swami Sachidanand, who was forever afterward referred to in the media as the Woodstock Guru. At 10 p.m., Indian sitarist Ravi Shankar took stage. He brought with him the first of the weekend's torrential thunderstorms. It would turn the entire area into a sea of mud. Concertgoer and journalist.
And look, they just looking like they were having an amazing time in the mud. Those must were some really good drugs.
Hendrick Hertzberg, initially excited to have gotten a decent spot in proximity to the stage, described the result in the New Republic. Our sleeping bags and clothes got hopelessly soaked and muddied. Our spot was right next to a sort of aisle, a thick, slippery brown river of boots and muck. According to Hertzberg, while he was trying to sleep, a constant, never-ending stream of people moved back and forth, all night long, without cease. Their feet sloshed and stomped and slammed a few inches from our heads. Security at Woodstock was supposed to be provided by off-duty New York City police officers. But only days before the concert, the NYPD deliberately reminded its employees that off-duty employment was prohibited. Since that fell through, the only police presence was local forces from surrounding areas, and they spent most of their time attempting to keep the access routes as orderly as possible. Arrests for drug possession were non-existent.
Yeah, because I was about to say that would have been a complete waste of time trying to police all of those people for drugs. It would have been impossible.
Within the concert grounds itself, all sorts of narcotics were openly sold and traded, with LSD and marijuana being the most prevalent substances. A massive cloud of puff-puff smoke was perceptible for 3 days, and numerous smoke camps were erected where people hung out and shared Fatty J's with each other. Official
Fatty
concession
J's.
stands were out of food by late Friday night. The concessionaire was an entity entitled Food for Love, which was a last-minute hire after corporate entities like Nathan's Hot Dogs and Restaurant Associates declined. Food for Love was overwhelmed by demand and began charging $1 per hot dog. For comparison, a typical price for a hot dog in the real world at the time was just 25 cents. With huge lines and long waits, ultimately some festival goers decided it would make sense to burn down the concession stands, which, unremarkably, didn't improve the situation. The Hog Farm Collective famously began cooking and distributing various granola and grain-based foods, but that required frequently leaving your tent or blanket, something many were reluctant to do. While some accounts say the reports of rampant sex and nudity at Woodstock were exaggerated, many others said they were shocked at the lack of inhibition that was on display. Walter Mills was a 19-year-old recent high school graduate when he got to Woodstock and told Newsday he couldn't believe what he was seeing. According to Mills, there were all these people running around naked and swimming naked in this muddy water. I remember looking out of our tent and there was this couple who just did it right there on the ground in front of us. I didn't know what to do. The woman from that couple later approached Mills, and though still naked, she started to casually make conversation. Mills later recalled, "I think I needed a shovel to get my jaw off the ground." That was not an isolated incident. 21-year-old Randy Holliday told the Fayetteville Observer, "The nudity was just a natural thing in that setting. There was a real kinship. You certainly felt like you were part of something. I felt like it was a very sincere emotional bond with a generation at the time."
I think skinny dipping is just beautiful if you want to do it, if you can do it.
One uniform aspect of Woodstock was the quality of the music. The lineup included legendary rock acts like The Who, Creedence Clearwater Revival, Carlos Santana, Janis Joplin, the Jefferson Airplane, Jimi Hendrix, Joe Cocker, Crosby, Stills and Nash, and the Grateful Dead, among many others.
I heard Joe Crocker's name before.
However, getting to the show was no easier for the performers than it was for the audience. In fact, because of the traffic problems, the promoters eventually had to obtain helicopters to fly in musical acts. But even with all the logistical issues and traffic jams, only 2 originally contracted bands failed to appear at Woodstock. The Jeff Beck Group, which featured a then relatively unknown singer named Rod Stewart, didn't show. But they had a pretty good excuse. They broke up just days before the festival. Iron Butterfly, whose Inagata de Vida was one of the most popular albums at the time, was also slated to appear. However, according to concert producer John Morris, they demanded helicopters be ready to fly them onto the site and then take them out immediately after their performance. Since the festival couldn't arrange that, Iron Butterfly had to be scratched from the lineup. The Woodstock ethos had always been described as an environment where hundreds of thousands of people came together in a spontaneous moment of nonviolence and brotherhood. Accounts of sharing whatever food, alcohol, water, clothing, blankets, dope, and affection are too commonplace to be dismissed.
That's a very
And
cool.
brotherhood.
That's a very cool photo right there. I like that.
Accounts of sharing whatever
That's
food,
iconic.
alcohol, water, clothing, blankets, dope, and affection are too commonplace to be dismissed. But while that attitude may have been common among the fans, things were a little different for the professional musicians who had been hired to play. In fact, several of the performers and their management began to adopt a hard-knuckle approach to the concert promoters, after sensing the chaotic lack of organization might extend itself to payment. The Who, the Grateful Dead, and Janis Joplin told the promoters only hours before they were scheduled to play that they would no longer accept checks drawn from the promoters' corporation. They wanted cash. The promoters had to resort to one of their banking contacts in the area, a man named Charlie Prince, who worked at the Sullivan County National Bank. At midnight on Saturday, he was woken out of bed, got on a helicopter to his office, and then went to the site with enough money and cashier's checks to keep the performers happy. Promoters had the most
Give 'em
difficulty
that
signing
money.
Jimi Hendrix to perform at Woodstock. They kept their fee for any single artist at $15,000. But by 1969, Jimi Hendrix was already receiving six figures for festival performances. His fee is rumored to have been anywhere between $18,000 and $26,000, as much as 3 times what some of the other major acts were paid, which easily made him the highest paid performer at the show. Promoters also wanted to put Hendrix on at midnight on Saturday. However, they were told Hendrix would only perform last, and they reluctantly agreed. This was supposed to be sometime on Sunday evening, but with the rain, logistical issues, and other unforeseen delays, Hendrix did not appear until 9 a.m. on Monday morning. By then, the crowd had dwindled to as low as 30,000 people. His set lasted 2 hours, the longest of his career, and included the legendary Star-Spangled Banner as part of a 22-minute medley. He even included a very rare encore. Critics labeled the performance as uneven, but it certainly made an impression on those who remained to see it. According to Michael Wadley, director of the Woodstock film, it was an amazing version. I looked out with one eye and saw people grabbing their heads, so ecstatic, so stunned and moved. A lot of people holding their breath, including me. Because Woodstock wasn't televised and much of the national media had already left the site, it wasn't until the release of the documentary that Hendrix's rendition of the anthem became a classic. Both praised and damned, it is still critically discussed and widely played today. Hendrix's perspective on the moment was typically succinct.
I thought it was beautiful. But then there you go.
Almost all eyewitness accounts of the Woodstock experience recall nonviolence, sharing, and brotherhood. Woodstock's legacy of peace and love was not just a romanticized memory of a music festival. It was the way it happened. Even the police were impressed. The chief of the nearby Monticello Police Department stated in the New York Times, notwithstanding their personality, their dress, and their ideas, they were and they are the most courteous, considerate, and well-behaved group of kids I have ever been in contact with in my 24 years of police work. Carl Loberfield was a 15-year-old who went to Woodstock with his fellow summer campers. When his parents, who had seen harrowing news accounts of traffic jams, hippies, and rampant drug use, called the camp and insisted the campers return home, Loberfield calmed them down by supplying a perspective that still resonates today.
I know how I always watch like movies from the 80s or the 70s where like the teenagers sneak out the house to go to parties and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure a lot of that was happening and the parents couldn't do nothing about it. Like, you can't drive down there, but you're going to get stuck in traffic. You can't find your child there. Too many people, no cell phones. Like, wonder was a lot of rebellious teenagers there.
According to an MSNBC piece from 2009, Loberfield recalled, "I was raised not to trust people and to be wary of strangers. And here were 500,000 of them who were being so nice and so happy and just listening to the music. It really gave me a different perspective of humanity." Far out, man. So what do you...
All right, we're going to stop it there. Oh, that was 2 good pieces from both of these creators. Woodstock. Oh, it had its pros and cons. It was a beautiful, organized chaos, a little rough around the edges, but still shiny. Authentic, genuine love, peace, passion, an obsession, music, you can't even like really describe how powerful music is. When stuff like this happens, it's just like, wow. And all this came from a thought in a few guys' head that left a legacy on the world, that people will be talking about generations from now. It already has been many generations after this. Like I said, I'm really eager to know about if any of you were there. What was your experience? Let me know in the comments below. Love you guys. Thank you for voting for this video. Stay tuned for the next one.